Hello and welcome back to the On the Ball podcast, another episode of the greatest potty going round. And we're back into our regular proceedings this week, back with another NRL episode, and then there'll be an AFL episode to come. Hopefully you've enjoyed the Olympics episode, the special I put up just the other day. If not, it might be actually today. I recorded it yesterday, but I think I might be uploading them on the same day. So it's going to be the usual structure. I'm going to chat a little bit about round 21 of the NRL. Watched a lot more of it this weekend as the Olympics sort of had wound down come the weekend. So definitely have a lot more to talk about this week. We'll also preview round 22. So just the usual proceedings. No fancy little topics in between. We'll think of some talking points in the coming weeks, but so I'm just going to roll through the 8 games and discuss how I thought they went. So Thursday night, we had the Knights versus the Broncos. It was a weird game, this one. It just wasn't a great game. The Knights were very clunky in attack. The first half, they had so much ball, and they actually went into halftime down, I'm pretty sure. I think it might have been 10-6 to the Broncos, but they came out. That could be a lie, actually. I think it was definitely 10-6 at one point, but they came out eventually and scored enough points to win the game. The Broncos are sort of capped in their point scoring at the moment, as are teams like the Bulldogs. So if you just score enough points, you usually get the job done. And the Knights happen to do that. I still think they're a really good chance of making finals. I'll talk about who I think is going to make the finals in a little bit. But yeah, the Knights, they've just got enough star power on the field. They're not a good team. They're not well coached, but they've just got enough good players to get the job done. And yeah, they're probably going to make finals. They're probably going to get smashed by one of those top 6 teams. Maybe Para, maybe not, because Para aren't playing well. But I think the other 5 will definitely beat them pretty comfortably unless they hit a rich vein of form. Talking points, Chris Randall actually played him instead of Jaden Brayley, who they gave a week off. And I have to say, I think Chris Randall's a really, really good player. I'm sort of surprised a team hasn't come and got him. He played a couple games last year, if not. Actually, I think he played a fair bit last year with Brayley's ACL. But he's been really good from what I've seen, really good in defence. And I thought he was really exciting on Thursday night in what he provided in attack. And for me, yeah, I think if they're going to stick with Brayley in the long term, I think a club should go and get them. I actually wouldn't mind if the Tigers went and got them, to be honest. As a Tigers fan, I'm not the biggest fan of Jacob Little, and I think Randall might be a little bit of an improvement on Little. He's not a freak or anything, like he's not a Harry Grant. They're once in a generation type players, but definitely think he's worthy of a starting hooking role in the top 16 teams. And I think you'd get him for pretty cheap, really. He's not a starting player at the Knights, and he would be going for a second chance, really. So I reckon you'd get him cheap. And yeah, from what I've seen, he's a good player, still very young. So I would be going for Chris Randall if I was a team out there. But yeah, Broncos, they're definitely better than they were at the start of the year. I have to say, I think they've had to sacrifice a little bit of youth development to avoid some of the floggings. Like, they've brought in Tyson Gamble, Albert Kelly's playing minutes. So that might, we might look back on this year and see it as a missed opportunity. But the likes of Tessie New, although I think I didn't watch the last 20 minutes and heard he had a bit of a stinker. But in the first half, he was really exciting. I think he scored 1 try and set up another. So yeah, that's something big that's come out of this year. He's still a free agent, as I talked about a few episodes ago, and he was right up there in my free agent rankings, and I'm shocked he's still available because the way he's played in the last 6 weeks or so at the back for the Broncos has been really, really impressive. So yeah, hopefully for Broncos fans, they can get a few wins under the belt before the end of the year and head into 2022 with a bit of a brighter outlook. But yeah, in this game, just the Knights too skillful. Next up, we had the Raiders-Dragons, the 6 o'clock game on the Friday night. Dragons' final week with players sitting out after their COVID breach suspension. Zachy Lomax returned from his long injury. I think he hadn't played since round 6 or something. I think his last game was against the Tigers, actually. But the Dragons didn't look good at all. It has to be said. They weren't impressive, and yeah, it wasn't a great game. It was a bit weird. It was tight, so it wasn't dull, but at the same time, it was a bit dull. Like neither attack was very good. All the playmakers on the ground aren't the most creative going round. Raiders got the job done, as they seem to be doing recently, and they're keeping themselves in that final hunt. But yeah, neither team are really a team to light a game on fire. They've both got decent forward packs, and made for a close contest, but that was about that for that game. The Eels and the Rabbitohs, this was a bit of a blowout. I definitely tipped the Rabbitohs. I'm sure a lot of you out there did as well, given the Parramatta Eels' recent form, but wasn't expecting it to be this big of a margin. Mitchell Moses back in the Parramatta Eels colours. Thought that would have been a bit of a difference. Didn't think they were going to go back to the team they were at the start of the year. I do think their flaws have been sort of uncovered a little bit, that they often hide against some of the weaker teams. But yeah, the Rabbitohs really, really destroyed them. And the Rabbitohs are sort of doing what they always do. They're sort of priming perfectly in time for September. This year, I think, is a little bit different in the fact that I think the top teams are another step up of what they've been in the previous years. So I think the Rabbitohs are still a fair way off, but definitely good enough to be the Eels here. And yeah, it was just a dominant victory. All the Rabbitohs players played well. They're clicking nicely. And yeah, Parramatta, 12 points in the modern day footy of 2021. Peter Volandi's ball, 12 points is pretty poor. And a Rabbitohs defence that has been quite porous at stages this year. Reid Marnie also out for the year, partially dislocated his shoulder, which will need surgery because he injured that earlier on in the year. Really disappointing because he had a great start to the year, got rubbed out of Origin through injury, now rubbed out of finals. Really disappointing, but at the end of the day, the Eels can't really pin their woes on his injury moving forward. It's just one player. I know he's pivotal to them, but they've really got to start turning this around. And I have to say, I don't know where Eels fans sit on this because I know they've been through a lot of recent times of mediocrity, so they're probably just happy to be in the top four fight. But at this point, if they continue this form for the rest of the year and they come sixth and don't put up a bit of a fight at all in the finals, I think Brad Arthur's job really has to be looked at because their team on paper is good enough to win a competition and they're in the prime. This is the middle of their window, and if they're coming sixth and, losing in the second week of finals, then I think there might be discussions about whether he's the man for the job personally. But yeah, Rabbitohs really looking good. Bennett's primed them nicely, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Finals is going to be very, very good because I think the Roosters and the Rabbitohs are hitting form nicely for finals, and then Manly have been in great form since, the early part of the year where they weren't great. So, and then you've obviously got the Storm and the Panthers. So, yeah, at the moment it's a 5-horse race, not counting the Eels out. I'm counting them out of the premiership. That could bite me on the ass, but I'm not counting them out of like a prelim appearance. But yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting, those final series, especially the final 3 weeks. The first week might not be as entertaining, but definitely going to be important to make the prelims off the first round because you won't want to play like a Roosters or something in the week 2 of finals. So yeah, disappointing for the Eels. It's been a disappointing month, really, and the Rabbitohs roll on. Next up, we had the Warriors and the Sharkies. This was a weird game. Low skills on show. My brother reckons this was one of the worst games he's watched all year, but it was close. And that, at the end of the day, if an NRL game's close, I usually enjoy it. So, although it wasn't the most entertaining in terms of high quality football, it was end to end. There was drama with the Kane Evans 2 sin bins, and he's been suspended now for a game. Obviously, he had that running battle with Will Chambers. Will Chambers, one of the biggest pests in NRL history, really got under his skin, and I have to say, Kane Evans just got made to look like a bit of a fool. Didn't do himself any favours at all. I can't imagine the sprays someone gets who gets sin binned twice in the space of 40 minutes. So, yeah, wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't see any more game time. I know they've got a lot of injuries, but Nathan Brown, that's an absolute coach kill. They did go on to win the game, however, which is the main thing. They had some troops back from injury. I think Harris DeVita came back. And yeah, that was good to watch, really. A little bit disappointed with this one, to be honest, in terms of the tipping. I always tip the Warriors, always think they're due for an ambush. And the 1 week I didn't tip them because they were in a horrid stretch of form, they win. So that was disappointing. But anyway, well done to the Warriors. Always happy for them to get a win, especially in the last 2 years, given what they've sacrificed for the game. Moving on to a huge Super Saturday, which was just a great week of footy, to be honest. There were 6 or 7 really, really good games, not many blowouts. The Rabbitohs was one, and the Titans, but the other 6 were really good. Roosters Panthers was a high quality game, end to end footy, high quality defense as well as high quality offense. The Panthers look like they're almost back to their best. They're not blowing out teams, but they're getting the job done. And I think when Cleary comes back, depending on his fitness, if he comes back anywhere near full 100%, they're going to be definitely a challenger in finals again. I know the Melbourne Storm look almost unbeatable at the moment, but the Panthers are so strong. It's going to hurt that they're not going to be able to play at home, it seems, for the rest of the year, but they're definitely not going to go down without swinging, really. Matt Burton's awesome. I think he's just going to be such a great signing for the Bulldogs. I know the Panthers have Luai and Cleary for the next 10 or so years, but it's going to be tough, I reckon, to watch Burton leave the doors at Penrith. I think he's a certified gun. I just can't see him being bad, personally. Just such a talent, and his kicking game is ridiculous. His footwork's ridiculous. One of the big storylines coming out of this is Angus Crichton got suspended for 3 weeks. He was the perpetrator of a crusher tackle. Bit of a different crusher where he didn't hold them up and then drop onto the neck. He sort of just went bang, he just ran in and sort of landed on the guy's head straight on, which is what people might argue that's not a crusher, but in my opinion, it's actually more dangerous because there's more force applied, as in, Crichton's running in, the guy might be expecting it less as such, but he's out for 3 weeks, which could be pretty vital whether the Roosters make top 4 or not. They're obviously right on the cusp of that, trying to chase down Parramatta, but this is not going to help their Warriors. I think he's the best back row in the competition by quite a bit, in my opinion, and he's going to be missing for those games. But yeah, well done to the Panthers, looking good, injury worried, injury riddled, but still winning games of football, which is the main thing. And it looks like they're going to be there at the business end of the competition, if not at the big dance like they were last year. That moves us into the Saturday night primetime game, which did definitely live up to expectation. Manly versus the Storm. Manly went into halftime with a lead, and I'm not quite sure how, given the Storm just threw everything at them, but eventually the Storm bench got involved, the Seagulls tired, and the Storm ran over the top of them. The Storm team, I know I go on about this every podcast, but the Storm team is just absolutely absurd. The Harry Grant, Brandon Smith hooking combination is probably one of the most overpowered things I've ever watched in the NRL. I genuinely reckon they're two of the best players in the competition, not even in their position, just in general. And yeah, I reckon they have more impact on the game than the halves. They're just so good. They set up the plays. They lead the forwards around, then they get early ball out to the creative players out the back. They score tries themselves. They set up tries. They tackle well. They're both just freaks of nature who are just willing to get their hands dirty at a moment's notice. And yeah, just the star power they have running around. It's so hard to defend because, you're looking out for Munster, then all of a sudden Pappenhausen's there. You're looking out for Grant, all of a sudden Cheese is there. You're looking out for Hughes, all of a sudden Hines is there. And yeah, it's just going to be so hard to tackle. It's also going to be hard for Craig Bellamy to tackle, to be honest. I think they've got the hooking thing down pat. I think Brandon Smith starting at hooker works, and Harry Grant comes on tied middles, and Brandon Smith can play the rest of the game in the middle. But the fullback issue is definitely starting to rear its head. Nico Hines didn't have his greatest game on the weekend. Pappenhausen looked decent. I still think Pappenhausen will come off the bench for the next 3 weeks, but come finals, there might be a bit of a switch. I know it'd be risky to mix up the team dynamics, but at the end of the day, when you've got Munster, the two hookers, and Hughes, it's sort of questionable whether you need a ball player in Hines. I'm not saying he's not good, he's a freak, but the running game of Pappenhausen might be more of an asset to the team. But yeah, it's going to be a decision made by someone above my pay grade. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one to tinker with because you don't want to. They've got a premiership really waiting for them, and you don't want to mess it up with a silly mistake. So, yeah, but Manly really well played. They're definitely going to be there in the pointy end of the season. And look, if they don't make top 4, which I don't think they will, they're going to be a seriously dangerous team to play in the second week of finals. I feel bad for whatever top 4 team has to come up against them in an elimination final in the second week. With Tommy Turbo running around, he just seems to light up the whole team. They all play great when he's there. And yeah, they've got everything to their team, really. They've got skill, they've got pace. There was parts there where they were sort of playing the Melbourne Storm game against the Melbourne Storm by throwing it wide, throwing it around, having some fun. And yeah, they play a really exciting brand. Both these teams do, as do the Panthers. So yeah, it's going to be awesome heading into finals. Really looking forward to it. But definitely, this was not a uh, as in this wasn't a dent in their credentials heading into finals. If anything, it was a positive. I think challenging the Storm as well as they did on Sunday. Fair to say we maybe took a step down in quality. The Bulldogs Tigers, one of the lowest skilled games of the season. Tigers got the job done. It's sort of the situation I was expecting. They just scored too many points for the Bulldogs. Bulldogs couldn't score more than 16. Not saying the Tigers were good in defence, but the Bulldogs just didn't throw enough at them. And the Tigers keep their slim hopes of finals alive. I'm not sure why the talk of their finals is so big when they're, just scraping over the line against the Bulldogs. But mathematically, it's still a chance. One of the biggest storylines coming out of it was that Jack Hetherington has been suspended once again. And I don't actually even remember what he got suspended for, to be honest. He got sin-binned in the game. It was a little bit harsh. His reputation probably came back to bite him, but I don't really feel sympathy for him because at the same time, he's created his reputation and you sort of expect that that's going to happen throughout his career. And at this point, there's even little things he does in the game that doesn't get pulled up. There was one where he got up and played the ball and he just slapped Jacob Little. And there's stuff like that where it's really hard to feel sympathy for him. Although I know if another player, if Joel Smith or someone did the same shot, they probably don't get suspended. By the way, Joel Smith's not a real player. If you're sitting in your car or something trying to scratch your head, work out who Joel Smith is, just made some random name up. But yeah, unfortunately, that's the weight his name brings, but he's earned that reputation through some pretty dog acts. So I don't think there's much to complain about there. But at this point, I'm sure Bulldogs fans are sort of just looking forward to next year, getting in the new boys. They've had some Raiders loanees this week, which is going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, in terms of the Tigers, they roll on. In terms of the Tigers documentary, I haven't watched it yet. I have to say, not sure if I'm going to watch it as a Tigers fan. It's just, look, Tigers games in my family, very, very stressful affairs. Generally come out sad and depressed after a loss, but yeah, so I don't really feel the need to relive it in documentary form. I know I should watch it as a Tigers fan, but still haven't made the decision if I'm going to watch it, so I'll keep you posted on that one. That led us into the final game. I didn't watch this one. I was sort of rugby leagued out, as I usually am by the 8th game of the weekend, but Titans put on a bit of a clinic. They're in a really good vein of form, actually. Toby Sexton's been killing it at halfback. Put away the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, like the Warriors, they've sort of just fallen away really, really poorly at the back end of this year after a promising first 10 rounds. They look like a smoky to finish in the top 8. I think they won 5 out of 6 at one point, and I think they've lost 8 in a row now. So things aren't going as Toddy Payton planned, and they've been playing games in Queensland as well, which you thought would have favoured them. But yeah, to lose to so-called the little brother, I guess I know it's more for the Broncos, but to lose to a fellow Queensland team 36-14, pretty disappointing. Tamalolo got pushed to the edge and he played 80 minutes in the back row. From more reports, his performance wasn't great, so that's something they've definitely got to work out on. I think Todd Payton's a really, really good coach with a great future in the game. Hopefully he comes to the Tigers, but if he is to stay at the Cowboys, that's something they've definitely got to address, how to get the best out of Tamalolo, because that's sort of been a running theme of this season. They seem to never be getting the best out of him, and I understand the move to back row. It sort of worked with Tavita Pangai this year at the Broncos, but yeah, I'm not sure if it's the best play when he's been, Dalian Player of the Year playing lock. You think you would sort of keep him in that position, but I don't know. I'm not an NRL coach, and I'll leave that up to Toddy Payton. But Tamalolo sadly out for a few weeks. I believe he's fractured his hand, so won't be kidding up against the Tigers this weekend. But that's it for round 21. Some of the other headlines making the newspapers this week, Brady Croft has signed for Salford for next year. I'm happy for him. I'm excited to see how he goes, actually. He's sort of getting away from the spotlight in Brisbane. I don't think it was a great move for his career going from Melbourne, a place where you can sort of go about your trade. He was filling in. He tried to replace Cooper Cronk, and huge shoes to fill. Wasn't in a market where there's too much media coverage, and he's gone to the team with the most media coverage, and that hasn't been great for his career. He also went to a young team that maybe wasn't in the best position to take a new young halfback. So I do feel bad for Brody Croft. It's sad to see such a young player go to the Super League so early, as it's usually the older players who go there, but nothing saying he can't do what Jackson Hastings did, not live up to his potential, go over to England, hone his craft, and come back a really exciting prospect. So, yeah, all best wishes to Brody Croft. And on the other end of that spectrum, Will Hopewade has signed with St. Helens. Sure, he's going to pick up a few premierships there. They just continue to roll on as powerhouse, and he will be part of that next year. Time for my top 8 prediction. It's been a few weeks since I've done this, so I'll update you on what it was last time. I don't think there's actually any change on it. Oh, no, there's not. So it's my top 8's actually the same. I've got the Storm in at first, Panthers in at second, Rabbitohs in at third. That's all but sewing up right now. All the teams look like they're just going to win out from here. I don't know if they play each other. I don't think they do. Roosters in at fourth. I still think they've got the easier run home. I know that Parramatta Eels play a lot of good teams, and I think Manly have a couple tough ones. But yeah, I think the Roosters will sneak in fourth. I think Manly will come fifth, and Eels will come sixth. That will put them up in my predictions up against the Knights in at seventh, Titans in an eighth, and I've got the Sharkies just missing out on points differential. I'm actually happy with that top 8. Once again, I think I said this the other week, but pretty sure that's what my preseason prediction was. Not in that exact order, but I think I had the Knights and Titans as the other two. Maybe didn't have Manly in there, actually, but yeah, I would have had the Raiders, wouldn't I? But and then behind the Sharkies, I've got the Dragons, Raiders, and Warriors, all 2 points behind them. And then I think I've got the Tigers 4 points back. So it's going to be really close for those 7th and 8th spots, according to my prediction. And then there's also a 3-horse race for 4th. But other than that, the picture for finals is starting to look a lot clearer. But heading into round 22, we've got some good games once again this week. Starting with Thursday night, we've got the team changes. We've got Nelson Asafa-Solomona and Felice Kafusi back for the Melbourne Storm. Bailey Simonson is back on the wing for the Raiders. Surprisingly not named at fullback. Rapin has held his spot there at fullback, and Simonson will play on the wing. Not sure about that. I think Simonson's a better player than Rapiner, but I know Rapin has had a few good games. The line is 23.5 in favour of the Storm. The Raiders do make games close, so I'm actually going to back the Raiders on the line, but obviously head-to-head we'll be going for the Storm. I'm actually going to be doing my tips as we talk through this, so don't mind the occasional typing sound. Dragons vs Panthers is the early Friday game. Rare early Friday game for the Panthers. Actually, they've had a couple. Who am I kidding? Ramsey is out for potentially the season after he snapped a few of his teeth or something. Something sounds pretty awful, actually. A tooth injury. Tarquin Sims, Tarek Sims. For those playing at home, Jesus Christ, a massive branch just fell on my roof. But Tarek Sims is suspended for a week. I probably just look like I absolutely shat my pants, but I pretty much did. Tyrell Fui Mayono, Josh Kerr, and Jared Beale are all back. And then on the Panthers side of things, Stephen Crichton is back in the centres. Brent Naden comes in for Taylor May, who I think is pretty stiff to be dropped. I thought he was quite decent as a Brian To'o replacement. Kurt Capewell is suspended, and Nathan Cleary and Tavita Pangai Jr. are lurking in the reserves for Penrith, but I don't think either are likely to play. The line is 18.5. Similar to the Raiders, the Dragons do keep games close, so I might actually take the Dragons at the line, but once again, head-to-head, we'll be tipping Penrith. That moves us into the Friday night primetime game, Broncos versus Roosters. A bunch of changes for the Broncos. Albert Kelly moves back into the starting team at halfback for Brody Croft, who goes out. Selwyn Cobbo, the young gun, comes back in for Jesse Arthurs. Xavier Coates returns in place of Jermaine Sarko. Tommy Flegler and Rabadi are back. Dale Copley comes in for the Roosters in his first game. They signed him as a top-up player last week, and he'll be playing on the wing, which moves Manu into centre and Tupanua into second row after a few weeks of being the wing centre combo. Warrior Hargraves has been rested. Broncos actually surprised the Roosters earlier on in the season, but Got to say the Roosters win this one easily. I know they're not with Crichton, but I think they're playing quite well at the moment. And the line's 15.5. I'm going to back them in. It's probably at Suncorp, but Broncos home game. I'm going to back in the Roosters at the line and the Roosters in the head-to-head. That moves us into Super Saturday, and that means it is Rabbitohs versus Titans time. This could be an interesting game. They played each other earlier on in the season, and for me, it was one of the games of the year. Huge comeback from the Rabbitohs, I think. Well, actually, who am I kidding? I forgot. I'm pretty sure the Rabbitohs came back to beat the Titans. It could have been the other way around, but I remember one team went out like 30-point leaders, and then the other team almost chased them down. Team changes. Tyrone Peachy returns for Gold Coast. Toby Sexton holds out Jamal Fogarty despite being ready to play after his injury. Rabbitohs go unchanged. The line's 16.5. I'm going to take the Titans at the line. The Rabbitohs are playing really well right now, but so are the Titans. I think the Titans will score enough points to ensure that it's not a blowout. So I'm going to go Titans at the line, Rabbitohs head-to-head. So far, these first 4 games have been quite comfortable in terms of the tipping. I will surely live to regret that statement. But Cowboys-Tigers, 5:30 game. Not the greatest contest, I must say, as a Tigers fan. But Tamalolo, Murray Taulongi, and Lachlan Burr all out for the Cowboys. Jake Granville's going to play at centre, which I'm excited to see after his impressive stints at fullback. Ben Hampton plays on the wing, who I also quite like. Tigers are unchanged. The line is 4. Tigers are the favourites. This is tough. Cowboys are due for a win. Tigers aren't in great form. It has to be said. So I'm actually going to go Cowboys at the line, and I actually might tip the Cowboys. I just think with Moses Mbai at fullback, the Tigers aren't playing great. The attack sort of lost its flow. We haven't been playing well all year, but earlier on in the season, our attack was very, very dynamic, and at the moment it's gone a little bit stale. We sort of rely on kicking it to our centres and second rowers, and that's sort of the only way we score at the moment. So I'm actually going to go Cowboys upset. Not sure if it's in Townsville or Southeast Queensland. Not sure if they're still playing home games, the Cowboys. Then Saturday night, we've got a bit of a blockbuster, the old rivals, arch enemies, the Manly Seagulls versus the Parramatta Eels. Taniela Paseka is out for the Seagulls. Freddie Lussick comes in for Reid Marnie on the Eels side of things. Paseka was for the Seagulls, if I didn't say that. And then Oregon Kafusi's been rested after a couple head knocks in a row, I think. And Isaiah Papali'i moves to prop, which allows Sean Lane and Madison to start like they did last year. So bit of a big change up. Papali'i's been pumping out minutes in that back row all season. So Brad Arthur's taken a bit of a risk there. I think it might pay off if Papali'i brings his aggression to the middle. And Sean Lane was a very, very good back row last year. So I think it's not the worst move. The line's 14.5 Seagulls way. The Eels are due to snap this losing streak, but I have to say, the way they're playing right now and the way Manly's playing, I've actually got to back the line at Manly, and I've also got to therefore go the tip to Manly. It's probably a little bit harsh, but 14.5 is not much. That's only just over 2 converted tries, so I can easily see the Seagulls winning, 36-20 or something like that, and covering that line. Then Sunday, the Sunday ticket, as they call it on Fox, we've got the Warriors versus the Bulldogs. Not the greatest game, it must be said. Actually, I obviously want to pump up the round, and I'm going to watch all 8 games. You better believe it. But it's not the greatest round of footy, I have to say. Warriors versus Bulldogs. Chad Townsend and Wade Egan are in the reserves for the Warriors. Siamana and Ryan James are in the front row for the Bulldogs. Siamana Fagai was actually quite good against us last week, and Ryan James is in his first game for the Doggies after being loaned in from the Raiders. Corey Horsburgh's on the bench as well, who I'm excited to see play. I think he's a good player, but struggling to crack that star-studded Raiders forward pack right now. The line is 9.5 in the Warriors' favour. I like the Warriors, but I'm going to have to go the Bulldogs there. I think even if they lose, it'll be a close one. Probably going to have to tip the Warriors, just given the fact that they're coming off a win against a better team, the Sharks, but not convinced at all with that statement. I might actually change that tip to the Bulldogs. We'll see, because this is the sort of game the Bulldogs get up for. And then finally, the Sharks versus the Knights. Sharks versus the Knights. I can't speak right now. Huge game in terms of 8th position and 7th position on the ladder. Final spot up for grabs for the winner, you'd have to say. Talakai replaces Chambers in the centres, who's been dropped. That means the forward pack reshuffles to replace Talakai's spot. Magoulias then comes onto the bench. Brayley replaces Randall once again, and Lockie Fitzgibbon is injured. The line 6.5 towards the Knights. Now this is a tough one because neither team looked crash hot on the weekend. The Knights, it sort of just depends on who rocks up on the day. I'm probably going to tip the Knights just because they've got more firepower, but I might go the Sharks at the line. I think it'll be a very, very close game. Could come down to the wire, maybe even a cheeky golden point. But yeah, that's a very flip of a coin. That's a tough Sunday of tipping, actually. I'm going to maybe lose sleep over that Warriors-Bulldogs tip. But I think after the Warriors winning last week, I think I've got to get on them this week and back them in for a back-to-back win. I can't miss their win 2 weeks in a row. So that ends it for another week of the NRL podcast. There's only about 3 or 4 left till finals time, which I'm very, very excited for. At some stage in the near future, going to be doing an NRL, probably not a top 100, but some sort of a top 20, top 30 list. The NFL do something similar at the end of their season. I really enjoy it, so I'm going to try and do that for NRL and AFL. Just currently working out the best way to deliver it to you in digestible content form. I don't really want to just sit here with a list of 100 players, but yeah, thanks for listening once again. Thanks for watching. Stay safe to all you Australian, well, everyone in the world really, and yeah, go Tigers.